Alright, so the Pokemon World Championships just wrapped up in Honolulu, Hawaii, and this is of course the major event every single year for Pokemon. The best players around the world are invited to compete against one another to become the world champion of their respective games. And of course we always get major announcements for upcoming games, cards, and things like that, so that's always exciting as well. But this year there was some controversy, as there usually kind of always is with major tournaments, but this specifically affected the world champion actually of the trading card game.
World champion of what?
So I'm going to go ahead and get into that today and kind of explain what happened, give my thoughts, and what I think could have been done differently. But first I want to go ahead and quickly recap all the cool announcements of stuff that we have coming up here. So if you want to skip that part and go to the controversy section, I'll have it marked on the video so you can see the timestamp there. But otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about some of the cool stuff first, and then we'll get into the controversy after that. And when I say controversy, I'm not talking about just like a small little thing that happened. I'm talking about it literally changed who the champion of the event was. It's actually kind of crazy. But without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the cool stuff. So right off the bat, I'm looking most forward to Pokemon Legends ZA, of course, because I am a big Kalos fan. That's one of the games I played the most, was X and Y back in high school. That was my game, of course. And to have it in the style of Legends of Arceus, but set in the Kalos region is so cool to me, and especially because Mega Evolutions are coming back. Now, I, like many other people, speculated that we would get some kind of announcement of this game, you know, whether it be footage or a release date or just some more information at the Pokemon World Championships, and unfortunately we got absolutely nothing. And it seems like with Legends EA, we're really not getting any information, which kind of shows that they're really not prepared to show us anything, or they're kind of holding off to wait until things are more complete. So yeah, while it kind of sucks that we're not getting any information, I think it's kind of a good thing because it means they're really cooking up the game to be something special. And honestly, that's all I care about. I just want a really solid game. I don't want a repeat of Scarlet and Violet where the game was very unfinished when it launched. I want a game that's complete and works well and looks nice and just excites everybody. So from the video game side of things, that's really kind of the only thing to touch up upon. As far as that goes, we didn't really get anything for that. Now, as far as other video games go, we do of course have Pokemon Unite news. It's the game that I played a lot at launch. I really enjoyed it. Kind of took a break though, I haven't played it in a little while, but it's still exciting to see new Pokemon added all the time. And it looks like we do have Armarouge and Ceruledge coming to the game, and also Psyduck, who is an amazing addition in my opinion. I love when like these meme picks kind of get added to games. I think it's really cool because there's so many Pokemon that you can choose from. Why not just pick Psyduck, you know? So it looks like Psyduck's gonna be a really cool addition, and I'm very excited to test him out whenever he actually launches. So yeah, it seems like Pokemon Unite is still alive and well. They're adding new Pokemon, and that's really exciting for the game. I think they're going on year 3 now, so yeah, it's kind of been a while since the game first launched, and the roster has really grown since then for sure. In other kind of video game news, we do have Pokemon TCG Pocket, and this is of course going to be the new mobile game added to iOS and Android that you can go ahead and pre-register for because it will be launching on October 30th. But essentially it's kind of like Pokemon TCG Live, which is like the card game on your phone, except that this version is a lot more fast-paced from my understanding, and it's not the exact same, you know, as the actual card game itself. It's like a different version of it, if that kind of makes sense. And so it seems like it's kind of like a more simplified version of the actual card game, and it looks like it's going to be a more fast-paced game. So it's something that a lot of people are probably going to like learn, you know, how to actually play, then maybe they actually get interested in learning the actual card game. And so we've kind of known about this for a little while. They've kind of seen some things about it, but it looks like it is officially coming out on October 30th, so it is coming out pretty soon. And they did release some artwork of some cards and stuff, so that looks pretty cool as well. I guess I also forgot to mention Pokemon Go. There is some stuff coming there as well. Looks like Dynamax is coming to the game, and they launched like a little trailer for that as well, so that's pretty cool. They didn't really show like a whole lot for Pokemon Go as far as that goes, but like they're always adding stuff to Pokemon Go. It feels kind of strange to me because I feel like Pokemon Go has a lot of mechanics like from like years ago, you know what I mean? Like Megas got added way after Kalos, and like now Dynamax is getting added like years after Sword and Shield. So it's kind of weird how it comes way later on, but I think it's cool because it like keeps the game fresh. And a lot of the people that play Pokemon Go don't really play the main, you know, story games anyways, so I think it's always gonna be a cool way to keep the game fresh. But yeah, more Morpeko is also coming to the game, it looks like, so that's pretty cool, I guess. I mean, the exciting thing about all those things is that they are keeping these games fresh. They're constantly adding more stuff, so from that perspective, I'm always excited because it shows that they actually care about the games. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool overall. And lastly, in brand new news, we do have the upcoming Pokemon TCG sets, and it looks like we are getting trainers Pokemon in upcoming sets that we used to have. So I remember like back in the day, we had like the gym leader set where you could have like Brock's Onyx or, you know, Sabrina's Kadabra or whatever. And so basically it's going to be like that moving forward with some of these cards. we have like Enzorark, Lily's Clefairy, I believe, was shown off. And honestly, this trailer was really sick, so I recommend checking out the full thing if you haven't seen it. But it looks like there's some really cool cards in this set. I'm guessing they're going to be very expensive, like the really, you know, alternate rares and things like that. And they kind of at the very end tease that we are getting Team Rocket sets and stuff like that. So I'm just very excited for the future of the TCG. They're constantly adding new stuff. They're constantly bringing old stuff back, and it's just always exciting for collectors and for players. Like, I'm actually really excited to see what all comes out with this set, so I'm looking forward to it, and I'll be checking online to see when they release it. But it looks like we will be getting that set kind of next year, so if I had to guess, I would say this would happen kind of around the time of rotation. And so that, of course, is when they phase out some of the older cards to bring in like new cards. And of course, the last big announcement is the location of Worlds for next year, except that they also showed the location for Worlds for the following year after that. It looks like next year it's going to be in Anaheim, California, and after that it's going to stay in California but move to San Francisco. But I'm actually super excited for it to be in California because it is kind of close, actually. It's just one quick flight away, I feel like. A lot of these locations in the past few years are probably way cooler, but definitely I would say more inaccessible to a lot of people just because of the crazy prices for flights and things like that. The fact that it's in California, I think it will be a lot cheaper to attend, so I basically have no excuse. The next 2 years it will be in California, so I gotta make it out to at least one of those. But yeah, that's kind of it for like the big announcements that we got. A lot of cool stuff for a lot of upcoming games. Again, we didn't really get much for the actual, you know, main video game, Legends EA, unfortunately, so that's kind of a bummer. But like I said, I'm not too bummed out about it because that means that they're cooking the game up, and that's what I'm excited to see. So whenever they do reveal it, I will be very excited to see some gameplay for that. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the big controversy with the TCG. And I'll kind of explain this in terms to where people can understand that don't follow the card game or like don't play it at all, and so where it's also not like really dumbed down for people that do know what I'm talking about. But as most of you know, throughout the year, Pokemon cards are released in different sets, and these obviously add new cards, which means that there's new cards added to the game, which means that it changes the gameplay up a lot. But going into the World Championships, this was basically a brand new format because the last big tournament was the North America International Championships, and it did not have the Shrouded Fable set. And so because of that, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of different testing and things like that, because nobody really knew, you know, what the best deck was going to be. This was kind of like a mini set, so it didn't add too many new cards, but it did add certain cards that were very powerful for decks. And specifically one card that was added was the Kyurem card, which made the Regidrago deck overall a very strong deck choice. So when you look back at the North American International Championships, only one person brought this deck because this wasn't even really a deck. Nobody really used this deck because it was not really thought of as a good deck. But then everyone kind of took a look at it and they saw what was coming out later on with Shrouded Fable, and they realized that it's going to be a very powerful deck. And so because of that, when you look at the World Championships, it did make up basically a quarter of the deck. So 1 out of every 4 people was playing this deck. Even though there's a bunch of top decks that people could choose from, this was obviously the clear choice for probably going to be the strongest deck. Based on online results and things like that, everybody was preparing to either play this deck or to find a way to counter it. And when you look at the top 8 of the World Championships, you'll see that most people were playing this Regidrago deck. And that's because it was really strong. And the other decks that were in top 8, you can kind of expect them to be there because there were other, you know, strong choices as well. But one deck that was there that was kind of unexpected was Iron Thorns. And that's because this is not really a traditional deck the way that it functions, right? A deck is composed of 60 cards, right? And throughout that, you're gonna have usually a bunch of different Pokemon there, and that's because you have your attackers, you have your Pokemon that provide support, that lets you, you know, draw cards, that lets you find items. But the Iron Thorns deck is kind of strange because it only runs 4 Iron Thorns. That's it. There's no other Pokemon in the deck at all. It's just 4 Iron Thorns, energies, and a bunch of trainer cards. And a lot of people don't like this deck because it's kind of strange to play. It's a lot more luck-based, people will say. Obviously, it takes skill. You know, any deck to pilot takes skill. But there is a lot of coin flips involved that can determine really the outcome of the game. And so you're really relying on luck a lot of the time, which makes it kind of an inconsistent pick. And also because it's just 4 Pokemon, a lot of times, you know, there are certain matchups that are really bad against it. So it kind of just depends on your matchups as well. You got to have a good tournament run, and a lot of times you can't really predict what you're going to run into. And basically the main reason to play this deck is because Iron Thorn's ability is basically an ability which shuts off the abilities of all other EX or V Pokemon or any Pokemon with a rule box. And so essentially when you run into certain decks, they're just unable to play the game. You use cards to discard their energies. You use cards to basically switch around their Pokemon and lock them. So there's certain decks that really can't do much against this, and they kind of just auto lose. Now that being said, not every single deck relies on abilities, so there are certain decks that will destroy this deck. But that being said, one player, Fernando Cifuentes, was able to pilot this into top 8, which I don't think anyone expected this deck to actually make top 8. You know, a lot of people expected it to be at the event, but again, it just doesn't seem very consistent when you're playing 9, 10, 11, 12 rounds over the span of 2 days. Now, all that being said, here is where the controversy lies. So in top 8, Fernando ended up playing against Ian Robb, who was playing the strong Regidrago deck, which does pretty okay against Iron Thorns because of a card that lets you shut off Iron Thorns ability, so it kind of lets you get going. So if you pilot it correctly, you can beat this deck, and that's exactly what Ian Robb did. He ended up beating Fernando 2-0. Now, that being said, obviously this match was streamed because it was top 8. Why would it not be streamed? And towards the end, whenever Ian actually won, he ended up doing this right here.
Is it all there? He's got the energy switch!
He's got everything! Oh my gosh, Kyle, Ian Robb taking down.
Now, obviously that's not like the best look, especially because it's like a children's game, so, you know, not the best look for the company, of course, but they went ahead and interviewed him, you know, to talk about winning the match, things like that. And we kind of moved on to the other side of top 8. Now, after the other top 8 match, of course, we got a little commercial break, and then we moved on to top 4, where competitors had a chance to win in order to move on to the grand finals. But instead of seeing Ian Robb against Jesse Parker in top 4, after commercial break, we came back and saw this.
That Jesse is undefeated moving into the top 4 match, where he will face off against Fernando, who was able to take down Ian Robb there in that top 8. And then take a look down at the bottom.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Basically what happened was they ended up reversing the outcome of the game because of Ian's gesture that he did on stream, which is understandable, of course. So basically what happened was they basically said that Fernando ended up winning 2-0 against Ian, and instead he moved on to go ahead and play against Jesse Parker, who he would end up beating, and then he would move on to grand finals and end up winning the entire tournament, becoming the world champion, making him the very first player to lose in top 8 and also win the entire thing. Now, it's kind of crazy because if you go back and actually look at the Pokemon Company's live stream that's on their YouTube page, you can actually see where they cut out Ian actually doing that gesture. And then later on, like I just showed earlier, they basically kind of gloss over it and just say that Ian, you know, flat out lost 2-0. Because it is kind of awkward. It's like, how do you kind of bring that up? You know what I mean? So they kind of just basically change the outcome of things in that sense. But yeah, a lot of people are upset because basically instead of moving Jesse on to the grand finals because they said, hey, you know, your opponent is out, instead of doing that, they basically reversed the decision and moved on the person that lost, who would end up winning and winning again to actually win the whole championship, even though they lost 2-0. Now, do I think it's right that they essentially disqualified Ian for what he did on stream? I mean, yeah, pretty much. It's like the biggest stage of a game that's for, you know, kids, families, everybody. I just don't think that's really the place to be doing that. And so I can completely understand why they would not want that to happen on stream. So I can understand why that they would, you know, give him a loss essentially. But I just think it's kind of crazy that the outcome of that basically affected the rest of the tournament. Now, I'm personally not mad or anything because I think Quad Thorns is actually kind of cool of a deck. So I think that's pretty sick. But I just can't imagine being a player that, like, you know, ended up losing to somebody that already lost to the tournament. I just feel like that would be kind of heartbreaking, you know? Because it's kind of like, from my understanding, was kind of like a rushed thing, sort of. Like, I don't think that Jesse really found out about this until kind of a little bit before the match actually started. Based on what I've seen online, of course, I wasn't there. I haven't talked to these people or anything, so I don't know personally. But I can imagine that, you know, you're watching the stream trying to prepare for your next opponent. You see who wins, you're preparing for that, and then they're kind of just like, hey, actually, we're gonna go ahead and advance this person because this other person decided to do something dumb on stream. And when I say something dumb, I mean, like, it literally costs a lot of money. It's kind of crazy because when you look at the payouts for this event, I mean, we're talking about, you know, top 8, you get $15,000. Top 4, you're getting $20,000. Second place, you're getting $30,000. First place, you're getting $50,000. And so I don't know, like, I'm pretty sure he's still gonna get his payout for top 8, I believe. But even just the difference between top 8 and top 4, that's a $5,000 difference already. So basically, just for doing that, like, let's say he does still get his payout for top 8, he basically just lost $5,000 just by doing that on stream. And who's to say he wouldn't have just won the whole thing and won $50,000? But yeah, it's just kind of funny that Quad Thorns ended up, like, actually winning the whole event, because this is not a deck that anybody thought was going to win the World Championships. I don't think anybody in the world would have thought this was actually going to win the World Championships. But here we are. So yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting to see, I guess, the metagame in future tournaments, to see if people are playing this still or if everyone's going to find a counter to it. This is definitely going to be an interesting moment in the history books for trivia. Who was the player to lose and also win the World Championships? It's kind of crazy to me. And again, no hate to Fernando. I mean, it's kind of an awkward situation overall because obviously, like, everyone was kind of affected, right? Like, the casters, what are they going to talk about? How do they kind of explain what's going on? And then, of course, you know, Fernando, like, what is he, like, he just got the opportunity to move on. Of course you take that. Why would you not take that? So if anything, I give props to him for, you know, taking the opportunity, taking full advantage of it, and basically going to win the whole thing. That's honestly amazing in my opinion. It's kind of an unfortunate situation, you know, all the way around as far as just the implications that it had for other people, I guess. But again, as a competitor, like, you get the opportunity to move on. Of course you do that. Why would you not? And it was honestly a magical run. I mean, day one, he was 8-0, didn't drop a single set. So the fact that he was able to do that and then come back and actually win the whole thing was kind of crazy to me. But yeah, that's basically the whole controversy. You know, somebody did something dumb on stream, and so they were given a loss when they actually won, and the person that they beat ended up winning the whole world championship. So it's kind of a crazy outcome, but that's essentially what happened. But yeah, that being said, go ahead and let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. And if you haven't already, go ahead and check out the grand finals match. Really, all of top 8, the whole event was really fun to watch. There's a lot of crazy matchups. Despite Reggie Drago dominating most of the tournament, it seemed like there was a lot of other decks that actually thrived a lot. And so it was really cool to see the matchup for grand finals because it was very unexpected. And again, I'm going to go ahead and reiterate this. No hate towards any player, right? It's just an unfortunate situation overall, but mad respect to Fernando for taking full advantage of it and going and winning the world championships. And for Ian Robb, he hasn't really put out any statements or anything, but he has put out that he was supporting Fernando to win the whole thing as well. So, you know, it seems like, you know, he understood what he did. He, you know, accepted the consequences of that, and he was still happy with the outcome of the event. I'm sure we'll get more information in the next coming days, but we'll kind of just have to wait around and see for that. But yeah, I'm excited for the upcoming future of the Pokemon World Championships. The next season that's coming up, I'm going to try to get my points and, you know, do my best. If you guys want to see more Pokemon TCG content, go ahead and let me know in the comments as well. But other than that, I've got nothing else for you guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, help me get to 10,000 subscribers, and I will catch you all in the next one.